Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. And yeah, this is someone who actually did get a Skype consultation from me a few weeks ago. It actually went really well. Something I do offer as a service, as one-off services. Hey there, Coach. We had a really great Skype call not too long ago where we more or less concluded that even though I'm not hitting solid intermediate/advanced numbers on the bench press, that I can no longer continue doing just the basic 3x5 program and hit weak points to just the barbell lifts. I need weak point training. My question is, do you still believe that strength charts indicate whether someone is truly novice, intermediate, or advanced? And in my case, I've been working out 9 years and still under the impression that since I don't bench 300, I can make gains on a basic 3x5 program and not worry about the accessories or weak point training. Could you talk a little bit about training age versus how much we lift and how people become intermediates at different stages? Oh man, what a complicated topic. All right, that's going to be very nuanced. I think the charts are generally accurate in determining where you are overall in the sense of the weight charts. Now, they're also accurate in the context of body composition also. So in other words, those charts basically give you an idea of what your overall strength level is, okay? What your overall strength level is relative to your height. Because if you have reached different points of training, you've probably gained a certain amount of lean tissue, okay? You've gained a certain amount of lean tissue. It's going to take you into different weight classes. And so if you're looking at the chart, say for intermediate or advanced, and you look at multiple lifts, not just one lift, but multiple lifts, I think they can tell you a lot. They'll also tell you of maybe you're under-muscled or you're too fat. Now, if you know that you're at a healthy body fat percentage and you look at that chart and say your squat or your bench press is really low, that you haven't filled out the muscle on your frame yet. It's a muscle issue. Okay, it's a muscle issue. Because as we always say, weight classes are height classes in disguise, but basically your strength level when you start comparing multiple lifts is going to be a combination of your height versus the amount of muscle you have versus the fat you have on your body when we compare it to body weight. Okay? Because muscle mass and height are the two biggest factors in determining what your strength is. Okay, they're the two biggest factors. Everything else is secondary. So the question we would get into is, do you need weak point training at a certain point? Well, yeah, if you have lagging muscles. Do you have lagging muscles? And I think the issue we run into also is that if you've trained for a certain number of years and you've never developed any sort of speed or power or neuromuscular efficiency, yeah, your strength and your size are going to be way below where they should be. And at a certain point, you're just going to need to start adding more supplemental volume. So I don't think the charts are necessarily wrong, but those charts are lower than my standards. I set a strength standard based upon an ideal scenario. Like, for example, I give novice strength standards of this is what you should reach on these programs. But honestly, only about 50% of people are going to be capable of reaching those numbers. Only about 50%. But when we start talking about stuff like the 300 bench, the 500 deadlift, those are not novice anymore. That's not, you don't get to those with a novice program unless you're genetically freak. You have to be a genetic freak to get a 300 bench and a 500 deadlift off of a linear program. Okay, you have to be a freak. Average person will not do it. They're going to need to run a dozen different programs possibly to get there. Right? It could take them 10 years to get there. But over to the case of someone like this individual, yeah, he's got some weak points. He's got weak points, like he dislikes tricep. He has good chest development, just general lack of tricep development, limiting his bench, things like that. So these are what we need to address. But everyone at a certain point, even a late novice, should start implementing weak point training. And people need to remember that. The reason we push early novices away from weak point training is because they will neglect the big lifts to do it. And they will pick the wrong exercises. Because if you tell a novice, hey, you need to work on your weak points, bro, they hear, I need to do curls. Okay, that's what they hear. When you tell someone with less than a year of training experience in the gym who needs to be on a basic strength program that they need to do supplemental work for their weak points, that doesn't mean they need to work on their hamstrings in their mind. No, they would never think of their hamstrings. They would never think, maybe the medial head of my tricep needs more work, right? No, they think I need to do curls. Because to them, the word weak point means biceps. It means curls. Because they're not serious, and because they're going to detract away from, they'll do less squatting. They'll do less rowing. They'll do less overhead pressing to do some curls. And then they'll do tons of curls and do force reps on their curls, and they'll get bicep tendonitis. And then they'll blame bench pressing because their elbows hurt, right? They'll do a bunch of goofy small movements that they don't program correctly or carefully select, and then they'll get their elbows will hurt, and then they'll blame heavy lifting because their elbows hurt, right? Okay, we push them away from it for a good reason. Mainly because they'll just do a bunch of curls. They won't assess that, hey, maybe their hamstrings need a ton more work. That's their real weak point. Wrong bicep, guys. So that's why we push them away from it. So the charts are still fairly accurate, but anyone who starts hitting intermediate, even on those height strength charts, who isn't fat, again, if you're really fat, those charts might seem wrong for the weight. Could probably start implementing weak point training, but it needs to be correct weak point training, not, hey, I just need to do some curls, bro. All right, next question. For guys, when they surpass the novice phase, would you rather see them work towards a 315 pendlay row for reps first, or a 100 weighted pull-up first? Who in the hell do you know who does 315 pendlay rows for reps? Also, why are you trying to do low reps on a pendlay? Like when we talk about reps, you talking about 8s? You talking about 10s? I've got a pretty jacked back. People compliment my back all the time, and I can assure you there is no situation in which it is even remotely imaginable that I'm going to rep out 315 on a pendlay. And I can do a 100-pound weighted pull-up or chin-up easily. Easily. 315 pendlay? Have you lost your mind? How much gear are you on? All right, a 315 pendlay row for work sets is you're talking, again, almost pro bodybuilder size back at that point. You're going to need a bunch of gear for that, most likely, or you're going to have to be a genetic freak. That shouldn't even be on in your purview. And we don't need to be thinking about strength standards on a pendlay row. When you start trying to go 20 pounds too heavy on a pendlay row, it starts breaking down into a cheat row, and it's no longer a pendlay row. Okay, it's a finesse movement. It's a speed strength movement. It should be about power. I would rather you take 10 pounds off of a pendlay row than go 10 pounds too heavy. I reel my clients in all the time. I have clients who, if their form starts breaking down at 145, we go back to 135 on the pendlay, and they do a bunch of sets of 10. Okay, the pendlay row, we don't put strength standards because it's not a lift that it's intended to max out on. It's not the nature of the exercise. It's a bad lift for this purpose. So I would never set a strength standard on a pendlay row. We shouldn't have strength standards on it. It's contradictory. It's intended to be an explosive, strict movement. And the heavier you try to go on it, it turns into not a strict movement all of a sudden. Like literally, your 10 rep max, if you put 20 pounds on it, you probably aren't going to do any clean reps with it. Even for 5s. So, no, we shouldn't be setting strength standards at all. Go for a stronger weighted pull-up or chin-up. I think that would be a better choice. If you even need a strength standard on that, we may not need to. You might just get to where if you can do 15 good chin-ups and you have a 500 deadlift, you're probably pretty good. Right? You probably got pretty good back development. So no, I would never push somebody towards a row strength standard. The idea is absolutely ludicrous. All right, next question. Hey Jason, what inspired you to take on powerlifting? I think because I'm a fairly cerebral person, I think people are going to expect some deep intellectual philosophical answer. You're not going to get it. Because I like to lift heavy, bro. Literally, that's it. That is the entirety of the reason I was inspired to get into powerlifting. I like lifting heavy. I like seeing big numbers. I like to move big heavy weight. I like to see a lot of plates on the bar. That's it. I like being strong. And let's come over to the point. I didn't realize this at the time. So this is where it gets a little more intellectual. I just like to lift heavy. I think it's cool. I think it looks fun. How's that for an answer? I thought it'd be cool and fun. Now, the reality I understand later in life, after a couple decades of experience, powerlifting is the purest judge of strength that we have out of all the sports. It's a judge of pure strength, and it's the most effective current judge we have of pure strength by itself as a single attribute. Like, we want to talk about gaming stats, it's a measurement of strength, and it's the best one we currently have available. That's it. It's a measure of strength. So if you just want to test your strength, powerlifting is your sport. Now, the other side of it, powerlifting has its own culture. It has its own camaraderie, and it's actually a pretty open and pretty embracing sport. Like, it's one of the sports where you'll probably never be booed or anything else. Like, you're not going to ever hear an unkind word from another lifter at a comp. It's extremely rare. Very supportive sport. But I did it for none of those reasons. It just looked cool and it looked fun, and I like to lift heavy ass weight. That's it. Alright guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. Hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.